Today we're on site in Dannyburg. Cooper's, the stripper that gets it off every time. No sanding, so easy. None of that toxic, messy dust floating around. We did a patch here yesterday, and that told us a few of its secrets. There's not a lot of paint on this window. We go to lots of places where there's 100 years worth of paint. This has been stripped somewhere in its life, and it was not stripped that well. It had a bit of butchery. Our stripper is very thin, and we make it thin so that it absorbs. You can then put more over the top to keep it damp. So this is a long-handled tungsten blade, and we're just trying to softly take off what's come away. If there's still paint left on, that's fine. We get rid of all the bubbly stuff. If you start spraying stripper over top of old bubbles, the bubbles that the stripper's already achieved, you're just going to throw product away. What we've put around the window is a pre-taped masking film, and it's 550 wide, and that's what we've used along the side, and so that we'll be stripping up to there later, so that's going to protect the weatherboards. Underneath the sill we've used a wider one. This is a 2.4 metre one, and that goes down the wall, protecting the wall, and then onto the ground to catch everything. And when we're all finished and we just wrap it all up, the deck will be installed in good order. We don't want to be stripping in the direct sunlight. George has just put on some more stripper, and that's where actually, believe it or not, water can actually build up and cause future problems. That yellow there, that's lead. Lead doesn't bubble. When you're outside, you've got heaps of ventilation, so there's no drama there. The product is very, very low odour. It's not like a normal paint stripper. And we often get asked about how much to do at a time, and it really just depends on how full on you want to go. Some people will be happy to do one sash at a time, other people will be happy with 2 at a time. Bit more keen, you can go 3. Just depends on what you want to do. And also depends on the paint you're taking off. When you do your first test, it'll let you know. The sound should be quite mushy. Yeah, that's a good one.
This is lead paint.
So this is quite a paste, and that's all lead paint. So it's always fun when you sand that and breathe it, or if you've got your mask on, that's alright, but you'll spread it around the house for everyone else to breathe. So when it's wet like this, you haven't got that issue. We often get asked about putty, and the thing with putty is if it's old, it's fine, you can strip over top of it. Newish putty is full of oil still, and it'll strip the putty out. However, this putty's got cracks, and it should just be pulled out. George is probably going to use this blade a bit more now because he's taken most of the bulk off, and these blades will get into all the nooks and crannies easier. Now if the paint was heaps thicker, all it's going to be is the same thing, but it just might take longer to get right through. Now the timber on the sashes is cedar, and it's a very absorbent wood, and we're probably going to find that when they did strip this once and painted it, the primers and things have gone quite deep into where it was raw.
Forage blade's actually really good for getting right into the edges of things.
You can see all these scratches from a past grinder. So what you can do with these blades, because they are a limbo blade, is when you're down to that part there, you can actually just slice a little bit of those marks off, so it makes the little bit of a repair at the same time. Always good to get yourself right in the right spot. You're not worrying about falling off your ladder. I'm going slow, bringing the... So, because that's not flat, it's got a bit of a curve through time. And when you're sort of leaning right out, you're not getting the pressures where they should be. And this windowsill's had many years of probably having no paint at all on, and so there's always a bit of weathering, so a little bit of a micro shave's not a terrible thing. So we're up to part 2, and this is where we're going to get the paint out of the grain. Now we're not trying to varnish it afterwards, so the idea is to create a clean, dry, absorbent surface. Stripping what's in the surface, so we apply the stripper and wait 2 minutes, then we're going to scrub the surface with the correct scrubbing material. Now because we're doing outside the house, we don't use steel wool. The other videos you've been watching have shown steel wool being used here, but in this case we go on to the grip pad, and the grip pad is like a nylon pad. It's got this grit in it, it's quite coarse, and we give this, so this scrubbing in here has been done with the grip pad. Now the more paint you've got off on part 1, the less grip pad you're going to go through. But this particular project, there's a lot of ingrained paint to deal with. When we did this patch yesterday, we found there was pigment in the grain, and we don't have to get every last bit out, we just got to get it to a point that we know we've got absorption. So keep the surface damp, you don't want to have it dry out. And always have yourself in a position that's easy to work in. See the pads clogging up with residues from in the grain. It's all starting to come together. This one, as I said, what we learnt from last night is we knew there was going to be pigment deep in the grain. If it needs to be left a little longer, then just leave it. An extra 5 or 10 minutes soaking can make a big difference. That's quite an improvement. Those last little skerricks don't matter unless you're planning to clear finish it. So George is just giving it a quick wipe down. So you've got a brush and it's got goo in it. So what do you do with the goo? Well, one thing you do is spray some flush into the end of the bristles, get a block of wood, and voila. Okay, George is going with the flushing. So flusher, part 3, it's coloured in blue to go with the blue liquid, and what it's used for is to rinse the timber clean. So part 3 is flush the surface clean. So we've got this spray, scrub, spray, wipe. The idea of the flusher is to leave the surface clean, dry and absorbent, so you don't have the sanding to do afterwards. Now don't do all the stripping of the whole window and then come back and do your flushing, or worse, come back tomorrow and do your flushing. You do this immediately afterwards, and that way you're going to take advantage of the fact that the residues in the wood are soft. Spray, scrub, spray, and this is important, wipe. So that's really good. So this is going to be a very, very absorbent chunk of wood that the new paint's going to be spot on. So spray, scrub, so if you've done part 2 well, then the flushing's generally quite a quick, fast process. This piece of wood here is called a mullion, and that looks like Remu. And then your sashes are cedar, which are ideal where they don't warp. And we're not 100% sure, but the sill is either Totra or Kari. It's this goldness sort of leans more towards Kari. The grain patterns are pretty similar. Now, technically, when you do the job, we've just done this for your visual entertainment. We should have done the top ones first, and you'd work your way down so that when you do get a few dribbles and things, you're not putting it through your finished work. So you're sort of spraying and scrubbing all at the same time. There's a little bit of grey in this sill, which is sort of weathered fibre, and this is where these grip pads are really good. So it's only on the sill, so an extra 5 minutes spent along the whole sill is worth it, and this is just going to help with a new paint, because that's what it's all about. You only ever want to have to strip this once. Now, we always get things about, oh, why don't you just heat gun it or something like that. Well, the thing with heat guns on windows is you're going to crack all your windows, and then you'll be replacing them. Also sanding, as I said, you're going to be breathing all the lead or spreading it around. And also with sanding and with heat guns, is you are heating the wood. There's a lot of oil in the grain, and you're bringing that oil to the surface, and then you're going to have trouble with new paint sticking again. Cheers, everybody. Anyway, review time. And what did we discover? Well, everything up top, on those top sashes, that was good old thick lead under it. It was like icing.
But that was the easy part.
Yeah, but that was the easy part. And if you have a look up there after, you'll see that top plank is in really, really good order. And that's what lead does, is it just looks after things really, really nicely until it breaks up. So that was, if the whole window was like that, that would have been cool. But never mind, it wasn't. So we discovered that in the bottom half particularly, the lead had obviously crumbled up over time, because that's what happens with lead, with years and years of sun. And the person that restored it must have loved having a grinder, because it had attacked it, and there was just so many marks in it that I had to do a bit of additional shaving. So this is this blade I showed you earlier, but the short edge on it's got this curve, and so it gives us the ability to do a light shave, where you would have seen me sort of using it in that action, and because it's got a curve, you're not gouging into the timber, which is, these are magic. So it probably added half an hour to the job, getting rid of damage that the grinder man did. After we'd done that, we were able to then put the flusher on and give it a good scrub with the grip pad, and that smoothed all that out. Now it's all good as gold. So even though it had had a hard life, it's good for another round. Masking work to treat, the whole lot's still nicely intact. So the weatherboards will be in good order, and at the bottom it's all caught the rubbish really nicely, and so it's a sort of a control, and we'll take a shot later when we've wrapped it all up, but it's just a really good way of controlling this. Usually I would remove a little bit as I'm going, but I wanted to show you how good the masking is. What is the most important thing, as I've said, and I'll say it every time, and that is a clean, dry, absorbent surface. Some people will say, well, you don't need to make it this good. Well, you do. We go to the houses that fail every week, and I've had the houses prepared and painted by people with that badge on the back of their van and all that sort of thing, and that's all cool. And there's lots of really, really good ones out there. But there's also people that think you can paint over top of dodgy paint. What you want is absorption. That's absorption. The paint goes on, the primer, and it's going to soak in. Everything's about good preparation, good foundations, and that is what Cooper's is about. So, thanks for watching, and it's a wrap. Cooper's, the stripper that gets it off every time.